All right, guys, welcome to How to Get a Girlfriend, also affectionately known as the Girlfriend Activation System. You're now allowed to laugh at that name. Yeah, it's a ridiculous name, but in my own life, what I experienced was that when I would meet girls and then when they would end up as my girlfriend, there were like a number of things that would happen every single time along the way. And what I found is that when you find a system that works every single time, it's good to kind of stick with it, replicate it, figure out what's working in that system, and then eventually share it with others. So that's what I'm here to share with you guys today. And again, silly name notwithstanding, it is almost like hitting a button or turning on a water faucet and defrosting something. You know what I like to think about? You guys remember when you were younger, those little spongy dinosaurs that you'd buy them and you'd put them under hot water and then they'd grow up. That's kind of the metaphor I have in mind with respect to this stuff. So the whole point of this, of course, is to learn how to get an amazing girlfriend or a wife, which I'm guessing in your situation you're not quite ready for. Yeah. Happy birthday, by the way. 21st. So it can work on a girl you already know, and I know that's important for some guys who have big crushes on girls. It can also work for a guy who's what I like to call leveling up. So, you guys are all socially savvy guys. You've, been studying this stuff for a little bit of time. You know what's going on in your life. There are some guys who are still kind of starting at the bottom and they want to work their way up. They're totally new to all this. They've got some, bad habits, some bad beliefs, some bad tendencies, but this is going to work for them too. And this is, basically the exact system that I have used to, as I said, date awesome girls. I've had some incredible girls in my life. And we won't dwell on them to brag, but you've seen them on the cover of magazines and you've seen them in movies, and two of them are actually going to be in the same movie together this spring, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, I'm very happy and very excited to share this with you guys and with you guys at home. And at a high level, here's what the girlfriend activation system is. The first thing is being the obvious choice for a girl. If you're the obvious and best choice for her, it's going to be easier for her to say, I like this guy, I want to end up with him. The second part of being the obvious choice, or the second thing that you want to have a great girlfriend is have the right mindset, where your head is in the right place. Third thing you got to get right is meeting her. Right? You got to meet her, you got to build some attraction, have her start to like you. And the fourth thing is building some romance, dating her, and going from dating to girlfriend. So those are the four things that we're going to cover today. And we're going to cover them fairly systemically. So a little bit of background about me. You guys, most of you know my story, but just to fill in a little bit of the gaps here. When I was 23 years old, I was running this software company, and I was very mature for my age, but I was also very brittle. And as hard as the exterior was, the interior was very weak. And I didn't really know who I was. I didn't like the company that I'd started. I had become something that I wasn't happy with. And I wasn't great with girls. I'd had a girlfriend already, but I was very insecure. I had like an Audi TT, I had all black Hugo Boss suits, and I rolled around Ann Arbor blasting like Journey and like Hall & Oates and all this like crappy 80s music. And I thought I was cool, but it is the epitome of douchey. And so there were girls who kind of came in and out of my life, but there was this one girl named Christina. She worked at this restaurant that I ate all the time. Gorgeous, exactly my type. I love brunettes with blue eyes, and she was just so pretty. Finally got her number, and despite all of my douchiness, and I took her out on 3 dates. At the end of the third date, by the end of the third date, and after having spent like $600 on really nice dates, she basically was like, nah, I'm not interested. And at this point, I had this massive crush on her. I'd invested a lot. You guys remember from yesterday the concept of investment. And then she drove her car off an off-ramp. And she was okay. She was just like drunk and like not massively, like not one of those, but just kind of, as she was getting off, she drove off. Got a DUI, ended up being at home under house arrest, and she was fine in terms of her health and safety and whatnot, but at that point I was like, oh, this is my opportunity. Like, she's gonna be at home for like 30 days or 60 days, like now I can like, I'll bring her sushi every day, and like we'll come hang out, and like I'll watch movies with her and stuff, and like I'll be her knight in shining armor. And despite how nice I'd been and what I thought I'd like done in terms of dating and making her feel great, she wanted nothing to do with me. And I was like, a girl under house arrest who has nothing to do with her life doesn't want to spend time with me. That's pretty bad. So that's when I realized I needed to get better at this stuff. It's been a long time since then. I started a company called Charisma Arts, which some of you guys know about. It was really big back in 2005, 2006 when the game came out. Had some breakups with the guys who I worked with there, and I started this Jell-O shot company after that. That went completely belly up in a federal and legal battle. And then I started this. And so we got this business now, and I've written some books and done some products, Unbreakable, which some of you guys have seen. And so it's fun. I love what I'm doing. And at this point in my life, I figured this stuff out, which is of course why I'm honored to be standing here talking to you guys. And so when I step back and I think about like, what have I learned? Like, what are the big man lessons that I have learned throughout all of these struggles and ups and downs? And I left out a lot of stuff about shit that went bad when I got to New York, but what are some of the big lessons that I learned that made me more relationship ready and made me into a guy who I would like to think is a great boyfriend? The first one is that life is lived in the face of challenges. And this is a big mindset thing that it was hard for me to accept because I wanted life to be easy. And I think everybody wants life to be easy. And you read, whether you read a sales letter about dating advice that, says there's all these shortcuts, or you read the 4-Hour Work Week. Has anybody read the 4-Hour Work Week? Everybody looks for shortcuts in life, and understandably. But growth happens, I believe, in the face of challenges. It's when you're challenged and when you push beyond your edge and when you are able to be conscious at that edge and push your level of comfort and your level of safety beyond that edge and still be focused and conscious right there. That's where you start to grow, and that's where you really feel like alive. So life is lived in the face of challenges, and specifically with women, the game is played in the face of rejection. And this is a really big mindset shift for a lot of guys. When you get into this, a lot of guys, they don't like rejection. Who likes rejection? No one. I don't like I don't like it when I can't speak the same language as somebody and I have to ask them like, where's the bathrooms? And they're like, I don't understand you. That to me is a small rejection, but it's still, I don't like that. But with women, life in the game is played in the face of it. As a man, you have to accept that. And I see these sales letters, and heck, we might have even like used little bullet points here and there about the rejection proof, blah, 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 or never get rejected again. And, it makes for nice copy, but, the truth is that, at least my truth, and what I believe is physiologically true, if you look at the way the sexes were made, is that the man is the one who needs to do the approaching. And the man is the one who needs to, face the fire of rejection, as Nick likes to say. And if you adopt that mindset, then you realize that, it is all just a game, and it can be fun. And you just push yourself, and it's okay. And everybody gets rejected, and everybody gets turned down. And that's fine. So those are two big sort of mindset shifts that when I actually think about them and embrace them, they give me a lot more power and a lot more control over my life, because I can say, you know what, I'm going to look at that challenge as an opportunity to grow. I'm going to look at these women over here as, yes, I may get rejected, but I may find some incredible girls when I just go over and open my mouth and start talking to them. And I just don't know, but I have to embrace that risk rather than try to figure out ways to run and hide from it or minimize it. So those are two of the big lessons. The next one that I learned is that, and again, very cliche, but you get what you give, and like attracts like. You get what you give, and like attracts like. If you give a lot to people, you're going to get a lot from people in return, and like attracts like. Or another way of saying this is you get in where you fit in. If you're dressed a certain way, you're going to attract people who like to dress that way too. College students attract college students, right? Like, douchebags attract douchebags. So that's, again, very simple truism, but as I started to think about it, and I thought, well, I'm presenting myself one way, but the sort of women who I actually want in my life, sweet, caring, social, awesome women, are not like that. So if I'm acting like that, I'm probably off and doing something wrong. Another big truth that I learned is that a big part of a woman's role in your life is to test you. And it's not to be it's not to be mean. It's not to give you shit all the time. But women will test you, and they'll test you in all sorts of ways. I break these tests down into tests of insecurity and tests of strength. You might have seen me write about this on the blog. A test of insecurity is where she's insecure and where she's trying to reaffirm your feelings towards her. So my first girlfriend, for example, she was constantly trying to get me to say, I love you, I'll never leave you, stuff like that. She's a very insecure girl. And that's fine. There's a reason we're not together anymore. Other girls want to test your strength. They want to see that you're a strong guy. And I like to call these mom tests. This is the sort of test that your mom gives you that you really get annoyed by when she gives it to you. But it's just because she sees something in you and potential in you that you're not exploiting and that you're not living up fully to. And so a mom test, for example, is, why aren't you doing your homework? Or, when your girlfriend gives you that test, it's like, why are you playing the PlayStation when you should be exercising? So it's where a woman sees or has previously seen strength inside of you or potential inside of you or something inside of you that she's attracted to, and you're not living up to that. And those are the sort of tests that used to really piss me off when girls would give them to me. But now I look at them as this is an opportunity to grow. This is an opportunity to be a better guy. And if I have chosen a woman well, and I've got a great woman in my life whose values I respect and who sees me as I would like to be, then I look at her tests and her challenges as a gift to me. And I say, you know what, I am fucking up. I am screwing up. I am not living up to my potential. I could be doing better. And ultimately, of course, if you're living at your edge and if you're embracing challenges in your life, then hopefully those tests just don't show up because you're testing yourself every day. You don't need a woman to call you out on your shit. And that's the daily life that I want to be living. Another big truth that I learned is you can't run a deficit forever. And this is obviously with finance, this is with emotions. To get very specific on this, I had a girlfriend who, this was at the end of my relationship with a particular company that I had built. It was getting pretty bad, and the founder and I were arguing a lot, and I knew that there was some shit that was going to go wrong. And so even while I was having a lot of drama with that in my life, I was dating this girl who was also very high drama, and I was spending a lot of emotional capital on her just to deal with her. And it was taking me away from the focus that I should have been putting into the business. So, you have emotional capital, you have financial capital, you have mental capital, you have all these different forms of capital. But if you start running a capital deficit, specifically, emotionally with a girl, if you're just giving all your emotional energy to one person, you're going to be running a deficit, and you just can't do that forever. And along these lines, in the long run, in the end, the truth comes out. And this is the biggest lesson of all that I've learned with respect to relationships: is in the long run, the truth comes out. And a lot of guys have issues that they've buried, that they're hiding, that they haven't dealt with, and that get in the way of them having great relationships. And or maybe they don't get in the way of them having great relationships. Maybe they just bury them long enough to get into a relationship with the girl. But in the long run, the truth will come out. And if you're running a deficit, if you're running from things, if you're hiding things in your life, the truth is going to come out. She's going to discover those things about you. So along those lines, I want to share 2 stories of love and loss. I was reading Vincent van Gogh's letters last night, and they inspired a little bit of poeticism in me. So 2 stories of love and loss. This is my girlfriend from college. We'll call her Erica. Erica was a wonderful girl. We dated for about 2 years. The most drama-free relationship I've ever had, except for my current one. They're about equal in as much as there's no drama in either. So we just got along really well, traveled together, had a great time. But she saw some things in me that as we progressed through our relationship, she wasn't a really big fan of. She watched my boss push me around. This is where I'd started this company with this guy, but he was the owner of the company, and I was the business manager. And he really pushed me around. He used his control over the finances and the purse of the company to sort of incentivize me in various ways and punish me in various ways. And because of that, because I didn't have real ownership in that company, and I always felt like I was, his bitch, to be very honest. And so she just saw that. She would constantly tell me, "You need to stand up to him. You need to stand up for what you believe in." And whenever she would challenge me in that way, those are those mom tests, right? I'd always say, "Listen, this is none of your business, okay? Like, let me deal with my own shit, okay? You don't know what you're talking about." And I ran away from her challenges. And so she saw me getting pushed around by other guys. She saw potential in me, and she wanted me to develop it, but I was too afraid to have that conversation with her. And she started to become my center of gravity as things became worse and worse at that company. And as I started to get pushed around more and more, I put more and more value into her as what I would call a center of gravity in my life, something that gives value and gives meaning and gives importance to my life. And I really started to lose purpose. By the end of our relationship, when we both graduated college, leading up to graduation, we were talking about, well, what's next? And she was planning on moving back to Virginia for the summer. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm going to do, so I guess maybe I'll just move to Virginia with you. And she knew. She was like, dude, there's nothing for you in Virginia. There's no job prospects. There's no social life. You don't have any friends there. The only thing you have in Virginia is me. And she didn't want me to move there on her behalf. So, wonderful girl that she is, she broke up with my ass. And it was painful. It was one of those 2 weeks on the couch, writhing, stomach pain, waking up occasionally to read Sherlock Holmes and then falling back asleep. That was my breakup strategy. And it was miserable. And you know what though, is I still think so highly of her to this day. We're still good friends after the breakup. We took some time and obviously had to spend about a year apart, but we randomly saw each other one day in New York and we became good friends again. And I thank her every time, well, not every time I see her, but I've thanked her several times for having the good sense to break up with me and push me out and push me on my way. And that was not having my own shit together, running a deficit. There's another one. So after her, I started dating some other girls, and at this point I was using some of the concepts in the girlfriend activation system despite being still pretty weak on the inside. And so I got to New York, I was dating some girls, and then I started dating this other girl who at the time was by far the most gorgeous girl I'd ever dated. She's been on the cover of some magazines, and I was just enamored with myself. I was like, hell yeah, I'm balling now. And we would go to the clubs, and it was fun and all that. And this is right around the time I was starting the Jell-O shot company. So life was pretty out of control. This is late 2006 to mid 2007. We were dating each other, and I was doing parties 3-4 nights a week. I'm trying to start this company. Really, really don't have my eye on the ball at the Jell-O shot business. My social life was great. I'm partying all the time. I also had this best friend who was really close to me, and he was sort of part of our group. And so we all just had great times together. But I was running a lot of deficits. At this point, I had a lot of credit card debt, a lot. I was getting up to about $50,000 in credit card debt. And we had raised some capital for the Jell-O shot company, and I assumed that there was more forthcoming. I was like, I'll just take care of it when we get funded. Because my eye was off the ball, we got some really bad legal advice because I'd picked bad lawyers. and we didn't clear some regulatory hurdles that we needed to because the Jell-O shots had caffeine and alcohol in them, and like getting that shit approved even back then was tough. I don't think you can even do it now. So we failed to clear some regulatory hurdles. All of our investors pulled out. I found myself, so within a week period, is like our investors pulled out. The guy who I was starting the company with said, "I'm done with this. I'm leaving. We're done. I'm breaking up." And he had a majority share of the company, so he's like, "You're out." My girlfriend, who was 30 at the time, I was 27, she's like, "Listen, you don't have any job prospects. I'm out. I want to get married soon." My best friend said, "I like your ex-girlfriend. I'm going to see if I can get her." He didn't actually say that, but I saw them out at this club, Pink Elephant, a week later, and like he's like all up on her and trying to dance with her. So it was a tough time. He never got her. But yeah, it was just like, that rocked me. Like that summer, I spent a lot of time smoking weed and drinking and just being depressed. And what did I learn from that experience? I was very irresponsible. I was running a lot of deficits to try to keep this lifestyle up, and eventually it all just collapsed on me, kind of like the housing market, right? Just a bunch of shit came together at the wrong time, perfect storm, life sucked. So, the big lesson, again, the thing that I want to reaffirm here is, in the long run, the truth comes out. And in both of those relationships, there was a truth about me, a weakness that was brought into focus in the relationship and as a function of the relationship. And so the big metaphor here is that I see relationships as a way of finding the truth about who you are. Every time you're in an interaction with a woman, you're going to find a little bit more truth about who you are with her, who the two of you are together. And so the truth comes out. This is the most depressing part of the presentation, but it's the real part of the presentation. It's the part that says, I don't want anybody to end up in a relationship with a girl that they love, the girl they adore, and then fuck it up because they didn't have their own things together. So that's where we are right now. Let's turn around and get a little bit conceptual here, and give you a little bit of a conceptual framework for what we're going to talk about going forward. A few of you guys have seen Unbreakable. A few haven't. I'm trying to remember which the mix is. In Unbreakable, I posit this sort of theory of interactions, and I'm going to give you a very, very, very brief overview of it right now. Has anybody read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? Too. Amazing, right? Amazing book. It's a book about this father and son who take a cross-country motorcycle trip, and half of it is the travel log of them going across the country, and the other half is the father discovering a new metaphysical system of philosophy, or semi-new, depending on quality. Exactly. And that specific metaphysical system is how I perceive interactions. So this is entirely pulled right from that book. I spent a while talking with my buddy David Tien over in Singapore about this, because when we were working to get better with girls, we would see these really pretty like model chicks, and both of us, like, for whatever reason when we were younger, we wanted models. A lot of guys do, right? We just were a little bit more, we made it a little bit more of a priority to go after it. And we used to really, really place value on these girls. Whenever we would see or talk to a girl with a model, it was like a little alarm bell went off, and all of a sudden, like, the way we acted would like change, and it wasn't a change in a positive way. It was like even that word model would just like throw us off. And so we started to look for a model to describe how we perceived these women and what was getting in the way of us actually, having successful interactions with them. And that's where we came up with, that's where I was like, dude, I'm reading Zen the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, you're gonna love this. And so here's what it is, right? The truth of any interaction is a function of the subject and the object coming together in a moment. Quality, right? So the subject, let's say the subject is you, and the object is a girl. She has an independent value or independent quality, and you have an independent value and quality. But the moment that the two of you come together, there is this experience that has a particular value. And that's the experience that's going to determine how much you guys are attracted to each other. That's that moment. So no matter what a million other people might think of you, or a million other people might think of her, none of that really matters when the two of you come together. It's just that experience of the two of you coming together. There's value in that moment, and there's truth in that moment. That's the truth of your relationship with her. And what's so interesting is when you think about approaching girls, you think, oh man, like there's some girl that I want to go talk to. She's pretty, whatever. Like I hope I don't get rejected. Every time you go and approach a girl, every time you go talk to a girl, every time you escalate a little bit and take things further, every time you get into a relationship with a girl, what's really happening is you're just discovering a new truth in life. That's all that's really happening. You're discovering a truth about whether the two of you belong together or not. You're discovering a truth about the value of the two of you together. You're discovering a truth about the quality of your interaction in your relationship with each other. And if you adopt that mindset as you go about your daily activities with all your relationships, obviously you want to be the best guy you can be. You want to develop the best social skills you can have. But a lot of guys put so much responsibility on their shoulders not to screw it up and to get everything right. And oh man, like I said something and she didn't like me and like it's all asunder and I suck with girls and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, man, like just the truth of the two of you together, it just wasn't a very high quality experience. And maybe because of you, maybe because it hurts, probably because of the both of you. So don't take 100% personal responsibility for it. If you've seen Fearless, Nick talks about the 60-40 principle. That's a lot of what this is about. So, the point is that in that moment, to break away from the conceptual, in that moment, value is determined, quality is determined, right? So when I see a girl, I'm assessing her, and I'm like, okay, what's her physical value? Is she a 1? Is she a 10? And it's unconscious. We can't help ourselves. Women run a different form of assessments based on a different set of criteria. We go into a lot more of that in Unbreakable. But, here's a few forms of value that you're going to assign to her. You're going to assign her physical value when you see her. She's going to assign a physical value to you. Okay? When you approach her, the value that she's going to be screening you on has a lot to do with your nonverbals. If you approach a girl, you talk to her like this, her perception of your value is going to be a lot different than if you're talking to her like this. So that's just a little moment of truth where some part of you is interacting with some part of her. When you connect with her, when you actually start talking about the things that you guys share together, it's companionship value. It's how good of a companion are you going to be? When you have sex, your physical, your sexual, your mating value. So those are just a few forms of value that people are going to, that you're going to be judged on by women. And it's not that they're sitting there with the checklist thinking, okay, is he good mating value, good physical value, good not. No, these are just sort of feelings that they have, right? It's oh man, he was great in bed. He's so easy to talk to. I feel like when we're 60, we could be sitting on a boat somewhere having the same amazing, deep conversations. So those are the ways that they're going to describe these forms of value. I'm just giving you a really geeky theoretical framework for you to understand these things with. And why does value matter? I mean, it should be semi-clear to you, but to draw a direct line, value matters because we invest in things that we value. I value this MacBook Pro because it's got really nice lines and unibody aluminum construction. So I invested in it. In fact, I believe in Apple, so invest in Apple instead of shorting them. My buddy's shorting Apple right now. Just found that out last night. So, let's look at a few specific forms of value. And depending, by the way, I just realized, depending on when people see this video, if this is like 6 months from now, they're going to be like, this idiot to short Apple. Somebody's watching this in like 6 years, they're going to be like, that guy was so on. So yeah. So, we invest in things that we value. And let's look at how value plays out in a couple different circumstances. And investment plays out in a couple different circumstances. We talked about investment yesterday. We're going to talk about it a little more later. A crush, when you get a crush on a girl or when a girl gets a crush on you, what's the what's the balance of power there? What's the dynamic, going on beneath the surface? It's basically an investment that is askew. And there's probably a better word for that. But, it's like she's invested in you a lot more than you've invested in her. That's what a crush is. Or the other way around, if you've got the crush on her. You've invested in her a lot more than she's invested in you. And so like when I think about grade school and high school crushes that I had, my investment largely took place in my mind. I would paint all these pictures and scenarios in my mind about all the stuff that we were going to do together and like how great it would be once we were together and like how I was going to cook for her and take her to concerts and all this stuff. So a lot of the investment that I made in girls, and and this is typical in high school and grade school, a lot of the investment that you make is it's all up here. But you've got a lot of investment. And you think about her, she's like, oh yeah, some guy, we're in yearbook together. He's nice. She's not doing that same level of investment. So that's what a crush is. It's investment that gets askew. Dating, on the other flip side of it, dating is investing a little bit in a person to see if the values are a fit. Okay, keep in mind, we invest in stuff that we value. If you value something, you invest in it. So you invest a little bit to see if the values are a fit. And then the more that they are, the more that you spend time together. And this looks vaguely sexual. The game, if you want to look at the highest level, we've been talking very conceptually here. The game in my mind is finding a girl who you value enough to invest in and creating and being the value that she wants to invest in. Let me say that one more time and we'll unpack it. The game, or dating, or whatever you want to call it, is finding a girl who you value enough to invest in. So I meet some girl, she's got some physical value. I'm going to invest in approaching her. We start talking. She's a good girl, she's got a good heart. She does some volunteer work, or she's got vision and a mission in life. Okay, I value her a little bit more. She's sweet. She's good to her brother. I value her a little bit more. I keep investing more every step of the way. I find out enough stuff that I like about her. Say, hey, let's get a number. I'll take you out on a date. Now I invest a little bit of my money in her, invest more time. And every step of the way, I'm just discovering more of her values, more of her value. And if it's a really good fit and it's a good click, great, we end up in a relationship together. And on the flip side of that, I want to create and be the value that she wants to invest in. Before we can even consider what a man of quality or value is, we have to throw out this obvious caveat that different women want different things. Okay, you're a musician, I'm not. If a woman really wanted a musician, she would probably value you a little more than she would value me. There are girls who are rockers and emo chicks and hipsters, and what they value is going to be very different than what a gold digger values. And it's not just on the surface level, it's not just how we live our life. I mean, there's pheromones, right? So there's been a lot of studies that talk about how people with different body chemistry are attracted to other certain people. And so there's, this stuff happens on a conscious level, on a subconscious level. As my dad likes to say, there's no accounting for taste. So as we talk about what a man of value is, we have to just make sure that we understand. And again, it's intuitively clear, but we have to remind ourselves that there's no accounting for taste. The idea that you could attract any woman anytime, anywhere is such a ridiculous fallacy because there's no accounting for her tastes. And I'd rather you guys be the great guys that you are, be the most fully realized versions of yourself, and attract the women who are attracted to that, than worry about attracting any woman anytime, anywhere. So that's individual value, right? Individual value is you're a musician. I'm wearing a dark denim shirt and have blonde hair. You've got glasses and have a sexy shaved head. That's individual value. And again, different women are going to be attracted to different forms of individual value. But there's also general value. Are you guys with me so far? This is pretty conceptual considering how late everybody was out last night and how hungover some of you are this morning. But at least you haven't put your sunglasses on yet. I'll know that when you got your sunglasses on, you're sitting there like oh man. So, individual value, again, is like attracts like. That's where we get that expression from. Like attracts like. Become the sort of people who you want to be around. Hopefully not douchebags. And what the way that I've thought about this, because I've dipped my toe into a lot of different scenes, right? Like when I was in high school, I was like a hardcore punk rocker, spiked hair, like dog chain and collar and all that. It was like dyed-in-the-wool punk rocker. Got to college, became like hardcore tech entrepreneur, right? Drove around in my black car, black suit, all black everything, douchebag. Get to New York, start going out to the club scene. Like, don't even get me started on what a douche I was in that scene. So I've dipped my toe in a lot of things, and the way that I like to think about it when you're developing your own individual value, especially as a younger guy, right? Like, we're a little bit older, like we know more about ourselves. You know what your preferences are. For younger guys, it's like, I like to think, be flexible, but remain true to your happiness. And anytime you're involved in a scene or you find yourself doing something that makes you unhappy, but you feel like you've got to keep up doing it, you're probably on the wrong track. And I just think about my forays into the club scene here in New York. It was like, it's a very addictive sort of scene. You go out, the music's thumping, there's beautiful girls, it's drinks are being poured down your throat. And it's very much like an in crowd, like, oh, do you know, so it's like high school. It's like, do you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, like, yeah, he was out at the party last night. No, it was amazing, man. Like, he had the best table in the house. Really? Because we had a pretty good table. It's just like all stupid high school shit. And when you're sitting at home and people are texting you, like, you going out tonight? You don't want to miss out on that party, because you're like, if I miss out on this party, then I'm not going to have a good story to tell to people, and I'm not going to see the faces I need to see to get to the next level. And so even while I was going through that, I was really unhappy. I was like flexibly trying to be in it, but it hit me at a certain point. I was like, this is stupid. Like, my real goal is to just have a really pretty girl in my life, not to be, surrounded by people who care about what's the hottest new club in town. So I wasn't happy. So if you're a younger guy, if you're trying to figure out what your own individual value is, where you fit into things, be flexible, but remain true to your happiness. Now, general value, so that's individual value. General value is, I believe, where self-confidence truly originates. And Angel, you can come in. Don't worry, man, you can come in. So in Unbreakable, we talk about this in a lot of depth. And again, I'm not going to recap it here. Some of you guys have seen Unbreakable. If you haven't seen Unbreakable, you really should. But let's do a little recap of Unbreakable. There's 3 forms of value that I talk about in there that go into the general category. I really feel like I need a whiteboard right now, but it's cool. There's primary value, and that's the fire that burns inside of you. So that's like your drive, your beliefs, your values. That's what like makes you into the core of that's the core of the human being that you are. So that's primary value. It's what gets you up in the morning. It's what makes you do the things you do. It's what subconsciously motivates decisions. Passive value is a second order form. So passive value is the world you create. Steve Jobs had a lot of passive value, put a dent in the universe. Kanye West is the example I always use. Kanye has a lot of passive value. He's created, when you go out to the club, you hear Kanye's songs, you hear Jay-Z's songs. So some of the passive value activities include your connections, your activities, your hobbies, and the things you produce. These guys filming right now are doing a really cool documentary about Adderall, right? So that's contributing to the world that they're creating. And other people will experience that. And if it becomes a massive hit and it wins a bunch of awards at cons, which we all hope it will, then their value will have, their passive value will have multiplied itself in the world. And so before they even meet people, people will know who they are. They'll be like, oh, you're the guys who did that amazing Adderall documentary. So that's passive value. It's the world that we create. And then third form of general value is active value. It's how you make people feel when you're around them. So some of this stuff includes your body language, your tonality, your personality, the conversation techniques, and if you like the word, your game. If you don't like the word, how you interact with people. So those are the three forms of value that at a high level you can build into becoming just a more generally awesome guy. You can always work on developing that fire in your belly. You can always work on creating a better world. You can always work on better social skills and better ways to make people feel awesome when you're around them. And again, this isn't a pitch for Unbreakable. A lot of you guys have seen it already, but that's what that whole course is about, is developing those things inside of yourself. So, that's why it was such a revolutionary thing for me to create that course, because I was like, okay, this is the sort of man that I want to become, and this is the framework for becoming it. And I started to create that after the falling out from the Jell-O shot company and the girlfriend who broke up with me and all that. And I was like, there's so much in my life that's fucked. What's the framework for building out, awesomeness inside of myself and being a genuinely, truly great guy? So that's general value. There's one last form of value that's important for relationships, and that's boyfriend value. So let's talk about that right now. Boyfriend value, aka being relationship ready. Or maybe husband value, depending on what your goals are. The four things that I think about with respect to being a good boyfriend is A, letting your actions control your emotions. You can write that down and then I'll unpack it. Letting your actions control your emotions. So a lot of people let their emotions control their actions. The best form I can think of for this is you're sitting at home, it's like you just got home from work and you got something on TiVo that you kind of want to watch. There's like a bag of chips there and you're feeling like just a little bit tired. You should go to the gym, but you're like, I'm just feeling, I'm just going to pop open. I'm going to watch How I Met Your Mother. That'll be fun. And so you're letting your emotions control your actions. But in my worldview, a real man, and a man who's ready to be a good boyfriend, father, husband, he lets his actions control his emotions. He knows that if I do certain things, it's going to lead to certain emotions inside of me. So even though I may be a little bit tired right now, I'm going to go to the gym anyway, because I know that when I leave the gym, my emotional state is going to be a whole different thing. I'm going to feel full of energy, I'm going to feel charged, I'm going to feel awesome. Okay. Another example we talked about yesterday is one night I was out at the club with my girlfriend, not my current girlfriend, a very drama-filled girlfriend. She did some shit that wasn't really cool. My emotional state was not great at that moment. I wanted to run up, yell at her, create a scene, just let my emotions out. But that would have been letting my emotions control my actions. Instead, I just kind of buried it in that moment, tried to put a smile on my face, have fun while I could. The next day, I let those emotions out, but very measuredly, because I didn't want to let those emotions control actions that I knew would not be good and knew would bring everybody down in that moment. So, when I think about guys who let their emotions control their actions and who are really emotionally driven, that's, Steve Jobs comes top of mind. I don't know if you guys have read his biography, but he's a very emotional guy. So, every now and then you can get away with it if you're Steve Jobs, but I think that as a best practice, it's better to let your actions control your emotions than letting your emotions control your actions.
A second part of boyfriend value is balancing fun and responsibility. And when I was in my early 20s, running this software company, it was all responsibility. In fact, that was my identity. It's like, I'm a responsible man who takes care of his business. And then around the age of 21 or 22, I met some guys who, liked to sit on their porch and drink and light off firecrackers and throw them at cars passing by. And I started watching Jackass and listening to Andrew WK, and my life got to be really fun. And by the time I got to New York, it was all fun. It was no responsibility. And that was great. It felt great, but it didn't end up
with great results in terms of relationships. So you can't just be all responsibility, because girls will get bored. If you're that guy, like, they're going to find somebody else to give them fun, to fulfill that inside of them. But you can't be all fun either, because you're not taking care of your shit. You're not minding your own business. Girls will leave you. They don't want a guy who's just all fun all the time too. That's like, a guy dating a girl who's just like a playette. The third aspect of this is creating more than you consume. So I know that again, these are just from my own life, but I know that in various phases of life, I was consuming a lot more than I was creating in terms of, certainly in dollar value, right? I was creating very little output, but I was spending money like crazy. This also happens in terms of emotions. If you become sort of that needy, supplicative guy in a relationship, and you're consuming more emotions from a girl than you're creating inside of her, like positive emotions, it's not going to feel good. That's when the relationships start to drain, and when you get that feeling like, this doesn't feel good to be with her. I need her, but it doesn't feel good. And I know I've been in some relationships with girls who are very needy, and they create a lot of drama, and they consume me emotionally, but the emotions they create inside of me aren't good emotions. And in those situations, it's like, that's the framework for like, okay, that's why I had to break up with that girl. The easy way of saying that is she's batshit crazy. But and the final part of boyfriend value is having your shit together or prioritizing working on it. And it's okay if you don't have all your shit together, especially if you're a younger guy. Nobody expects at 20, 21 that you're going to have your shit together. But if you want to be a good boyfriend, if you want a really solid relationship, not just like, a little college-y relationship, like, where it's just all about going out and hooking up. But if you want a really solid relationship with a great girlfriend, have your shit together or prioritize working on it, because the sort of girl who you're going to want, presumably, is going to want a guy who's got his shit together, because she's got her shit together and she's prioritizing her things. I know when I was in college, the girls who I was really into, they were motivated. They were getting internships in the summer. I was at Michigan, they were going to New York. They'd come back from New York like, oh yeah, like I lived in the big city, I went out to the bars there, I met all these cool guys. Be like, oh man, like this girl's got her shit together. So, some things to think about as you get your shit together, some things to handle, some things that a guy has to have handled when it comes to having his shit together is your work situation. Right? And every time I see an ad that's like, how to attract women with, even if you're bald, fat, ugly, or broke, like, makes good copy. And there's some truth to those things, right? You can still be attractive. But in terms of having a great relationship with a girl, it's like no money, no honey. Right? You got to have your work situation somewhat handled. And I'm not talking about, gold diggers here. And guys get really defensive about this. Guys are like, oh man, well if she wants a guy who's like got money or who's gonna take her out, like fuck that girl. That's retarded. Like a girl who wants a boyfriend, she wants a guy who's got his shit together and who's specifically his work situation. Another big aspect that guys have to get together is being the leader of their own lives. This is huge. I see this happen on our boot camps, right? A guy comes into the boot camp and, Nick, who's basically running them these days, Nick gives them all this energy. He takes them out to the bar and he's like, yeah, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna talk to that girl. And Nick is very good at going from being the leader on the first night to letting the guys being the leader on the second or third night. And this is huge. It's so important because when the guy leaves that weekend, Nick's not around anymore. And the guy has to self-motivate. When he's out at the bar, he's got to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go talk to that girl. I just think back at times throughout my own life at many of my companies and many of my relationships where I didn't take responsibility for what I wanted in my own happiness. It's like taking responsibility for yourself, being the leader of your own life. It's cliche, but nobody else is going to be looking out for your own happiness as much as you are. So, that's just being the leader of your own life and ultimately taking responsibilities. It kind of reminds me of this line from The Departed. You guys seen that movie? There's this great line where Marky Mark, he's going nuts, and they've just had this drug. They were trying to do surveillance on an illegal deal for chips that would have nuclear launch codes or something. And some guy didn't put the camera in the right place. You remember this? And Marky Mark's like flipping out, and he's going nuts and all this. And some guy looks at him, and he's like, who the hell are you? And Mark Wahlberg looks down at him and he's like, I'm the guy who did his fucking job. You must be the other guy. It's like, takes responsibility. He's a leader of his own life. That mindset pervades everything. Work, relationships, just going out, your health, all that stuff. A third thing that a guy has to have handled, has to get his shit together with, is relationships with other men. And we're going to talk about this more in a little bit. But if you don't have good relationships with other men in terms of both having good friendships and also not being totally beta'd every time you hang out with other men. Like if a girl sees that you are the lowest member of the social group and the totem pole, it's just a huge attraction killer. And not just with friendships, but also in work. In direct experience, I saw how people who I worked with would beta me, and how it would just kill attraction that girls had for me. And if girls see that you can't handle other men, you can't stand up and confront other men, you can't handle your shit with them, they just again, huge attraction killer. I don't need to dwell on that. Another thing a guy's got to handle is lingering resentment. Whether it be towards family, friends, girlfriends, whatever, if there's lingering resentment in his life, especially towards women. I mean, I see these websites like PUA Hate and some of these message boards that guys go, and we even see it from time to time on our message board. There was a guy on there who, when he joined Andre 3, it's you look at his first posts, man, he had a lot of lingering resentment towards women, and he's come a long way. And you see, he's got this really positive attitude now towards women. It's great. He still writes really long posts, but yeah. So if you've got, we're going to talk about some ways to handle that in a second, but it's something you got to get handled. And finally, the need to prove something. If you've got a need to prove something to yourself, to anyone, to yourself maybe a little bit. You want to prove what a badass you are to, achieve things in the world. That's a little bit of that is good. A little bit of ego is good. If you've got a need to prove something to somebody else, it'll kill you. I think back to one relationship I had with a really great girl, and she wasn't the prettiest girl I ever dated, but she was one of the coolest girls I ever dated. And there were two things that I thought about with respect to her looks. One of them was, I think I'd like to be with a prettier girl just for me and my own enjoyment, subject-object interaction, truth, value, quality, all that. But I'd also like to be with another girl because I want to impress other guys when I walk in with a pretty girl on my arm. And one thing I learned is it's much more impressive to have a cool girl who's not as good looking than it is to have a really hot girl who's a total bitch. Every guy would much rather hang out with a cool girl who's not as good looking. So it's just my own silly value system that got corrupted. But needing to prove something, especially to other guys, it's a killer. So those are some things that a guy wants to handle on his way to becoming a more high-value person. And the ultimate value, to close this segment off, the ultimate value, once you've developed all these things, your primary, passive, active, etc., whatever, once you're just an awesome guy, the ultimate value is when you have fans. And in the age of Facebook and fan pages, I thought this was a particularly good metaphor, right? If you're a guy who has fans, it's a sign that you're doing something right. Okay, and I don't mean that you actually have a Facebook page and that people fan your Facebook page, although this came about because I created a fan page for our company. And it's interesting because when I started this company, it was like I was sort of ashamed of what I was doing. I was like, I'm doing this Conquer Your Campus book, and it's got this sleazy copy, and it's selling seduction and whatnot. And I've really started to mold this company over the 4 years that we've been doing it. I've molded this company in my own image and my own values, and taken it away from that and into something that's much more about manspirational stuff. And I knew something was working when friends from real life were becoming fans of our company. I was like, we're doing something right when people who I actually respect and who are actually friends of mine and who aren't just dudes who want to get laid, who I don't know, are becoming fans of us. That's great. And I thought about what is it about my life, about how I've lived it for the last 4 years that's created those conditions. And the first thing is dreaming big. This is such cliche self-help stuff, but it's huge. Dreaming big. Okay, if you want to have fans, you got to dream big. And when even in my darkest hours, and the darkest days of being, high and stoned or stoned, and I get the same thing, right? There were never any other drugs besides pot, but the pot and the drunkenness and all that. Even in my darkest hours, I still dreamed big. I was like, I want a great life for myself. I want great people, and I don't know how I'm going to get there right now, but I still held on to that dream. And I still keep dreaming bigger and bigger every day. Get others to invest in your dreams. That's the second part of it. If you can get other people to invest in the dreams that you create, and I was very fortunate that I met Nick when I did. Nick saw my vision and he bought into it. We've since been so fortunate to have so many people who have bought into the vision and the dreams that we've all worked together to create. And now we have people who inform us on our dreams. I mean, it was really awesome yesterday when you're like, listen, man, I hate the word game. I hate all the sleaziness of all that stuff. Like, that's not for me. I like it when you guys go in the direction of being honest, ethical people. And that's like other people contributing to my dreams. It's amazing to see that and see how those are shaped. So getting other people to invest in them, and we'll talk about doing this on dates later, but if you can get a girl to invest in your dreams, that's really powerful. And soon, friends become fans. And not on a fan page sense. When your friends get invested in your dreams and they see the big things that you want to create, and they think it's exciting for you, and they're excited for you, your friends become your fans, and they start telling their friends about you. One of my best friends in the world, this is funny, I'm going to tell the full story in a little bit, but one of my best friends in the world, the one whose birthday was Friday night, he's a lawyer, he's a corporate lawyer, and he hates his job. And so he loves telling people about my job. And he somehow, he breaks all the rules in dating, but he still manages to get away with it. And so he tells girls about my job, and he's a fan. And it's like, so when I meet these girls, because David has spoken so fondly of me and so highly of what I've done, he teases me a little bit. It's like, these girls are already into me when I meet them. And it's great. It's really cool. And the story of how that played out in a very funny way is I'll share with you in a second. But friends become fans, and ultimately, so does your girlfriend. And I knew I was doing stuff right, again, when my last two girlfriends, one of whom, again, came from a very profoundly Christian background, was looking at what we were doing in our business and was like our biggest cheerleader. And my current girlfriend, she loves what we do. She loves to be a part of it. She loves telling people about it. And, if you can have girls invest in your dreams and telling all their friends about it, it's just such a great place to come at in terms of how you live your life and the value that you are. So that's the summary of being an awesome guy. That's when you know you're doing something right. And that concludes our segment on value that makes you the obvious choice to a woman. So next we're going to talk about the mindset of a relationship-ready man, how to prepare for that.